question. You know, if the genetics had changed a ton, which we know they haven't, that whole Human Genome Project that went in the late 80s where they thought, God, we got a gene for everything, right? And then they came back and they're like, holy smokes, there's not that many genes, right? It's really how the genes react to the environment. So we know that the human genome hasn't changed for at least minimally 40,000 years. So if that is the case, getting into a sitting lifestyle, which we haven't done for most of that existence, could be a bit problematic. But anyway, hey, thanks for having me. I know Sandy always has a ton of fun here and has enjoyed the relationship with you guys for a while. And we're just trying to put together a few things more to create more just a thinking type of environment. One that says, hey, you know, no one has all the answers, but might we be willing to think about things maybe a little bit differently than what we're doing today, such that we give ourselves a chance to adapt. In chiropractic, one of the things that we often talk to people about is we're trying to wake up areas perhaps of your joints so you have a greater awareness of where you are in space. If you're not aware of what you're doing, it's harder to make change. And the same thing goes in all the aspects of health for us. I laid down a lady yesterday, and this happens pretty frequently. And I came in the room, she was already face down on the table, and she was crooked. So I just centered her on the table, and she goes, why'd you make me crooked? And I said, well, no, actually now you're straight. But her perception of where she is in space is off. And so now when we put her back to crooked, I said, hey, let me move you again. So I moved her back to crooked. She says, yeah, that feels good. You put her back to straight. She goes, something's off, right? And so the same thing goes. I often make the analogies to Taco Bell test. Chad was talking about Taco Bell in here. And you know, if you can go to Taco Bell and not get a sense that your energy is different after you eat that food, your digestion is perhaps different, that something's different than if you had a kale salad and some salmon, then something's really off. It means that you are in this state where you're having trouble perceiving your own energy system in relation to the food that it's getting. And so that's kind of what we're looking at today. We talk about this stuff on every Wednesday on the radio too. If you ever want to tune in, ESPN Radio. We've been doing it for about 3 years. The show's called Living the Run. It's at 6 o'clock on Wednesday nights. It won't be on tomorrow because of the World Series. But we get into this stuff all the time, and a partner of mine and I, we just sit and we rap about what's going on in today's society. We try to make some jokes and some poke some fun, and we'll try to do a little bit today too. But it's some of the things that people believe so wholeheartedly, but they're just wrong. They're just flat out wrong, and we got over-marketed too. And it's a classic thing. You guys are in the, maybe not as much here in San Luis Obispo as if you were in the Midwest perhaps, but you see it all the time, right? We have more obesity. You get more calls for people who can't move because they're overweight, they're totally weak as an adult. They just can't do the basic things a human can do. We get more heart disease calls, right? We get more stroke calls. We get more all of this kind of stuff, and it's not getting any better, right? Do you need me to hold this?
Yeah, you're gonna wear it.
Oh, got it. Super cool. Is that better?
Yep.
Microphone and a camera.
Got it, okay. So we get more heart disease, more stroke. We get more of all that stuff than ever. And if you look at the approach in the last 30 years, at least in the United States, is that we just fill people up with medications, right? And we just say, hey, look, you need that blood pressure med, you need that cholesterol med, you need the diabetes medication, you need the antidepressants, you need the pain meds, right? They go on and on and on. And you guys probably get more calls than ever. Had you done this gig, you know, say you could have been doing it 50 years ago and then compare it to today, how many times do we get calls for adverse drug reactions? And these aren't illegal drugs, this is pharmaceuticals, right? Oops. Couldn't remember which bottle to take. I got 15 of them here in this bag, and maybe I took the wrong combination, right? And we even get death. One of the most interesting statistics that they post every year in JAMA, which is the kind of journal of the American Medical Association, right? They produce stats on death. And we had 1 million people, just under 1 million people last year, okay? It was only surpassed by heart disease and cancer. Were the only things that had more death. Was what they call iatrogenic, right? And what it is it's physician-induced or hospital-induced death. Okay? Well, what is that mostly? It's either infection picked up in hospitals, right? Or the more common one is combinations of pharmaceuticals that go bad on somebody. and these people just die, right? And what's interesting is just more to me the line of thinking that we come across is that this. I had this guy come in, I've had a couple of these. One, I had this girl come in last week and she goes, I've got all this pain, I've got joint pain, they don't know what I have, right? They don't know, is it fibromyalgia, what is it? But my joints are just sore, my body's sore, she's 32. She's a little overweight. So what do they give her? They give her some Tramadol, right? So she gets some Tramadol for pain going along, but what does the Tramadol cause for her? Unfortunately for her, it creates a side effect of massive anxiety, right? Especially in the evening. So now she gets massive anxiety. Well, there's two ways to kind of look at that, at least to me. One is that I go in and maybe Tramadol just isn't the right medication for me, right? And maybe that's not going to really be the solver of my pain. We already know it doesn't cure pain anyway, but maybe that's not the solver. Or you can do what she did and said, hey, I never have had anxiety before, but now I've got it, so maybe I just need some Xanax. Right?
Right. Yeah. Sure.
A 50-year-old comes into my office, he goes in and he's got 142 over 88 blood pressure. Okay? Nothing crazy going on there. He's in his 50s. They say, I think you should take some blood pressure medication. He said, I don't know, I'm working out, I'm doing this, but okay, I'll follow it up. So what's he do? He takes the ACE inhibitors, right? Lisinopril. So he gets on the Lisinopril, and lo and behold, within 3 days, the guy's got massive, massive acid reflux. Okay? Well, what's the idea? The guy's never been on meds before. He's never had acid reflux before. He takes Lisinopril. He feels like he's burning in his chest, especially when he's laying down at night. Go to bed. It's brutal. Can't sleep. So what's the answer? Surely you need Prilosec. You gotta have it, right? And so it's a way of thinking that just is in America really only. You go and talk to people in China, you go to talk to people in Australia, you go talk to people here. They don't quite do it like this. And if you look at us, we take more medications than the rest of the world combined. Yet we're making zero dents, and things are actually getting worse as far as what's considered chronic lifestyle disease, right? World Health Organization comes out and says, hey, look, America, guess what? Do you realize that of all the money spent, 9 out of $10, get this, they said 9 out of $10 you guys spend on healthcare related conditions are lifestyle related. Meaning that you guys could change your money spent by just changing your lifestyle. But we don't do it, right? We just take more meds. We can kind of continue to do that. So we kind of get into this thing and say, why do we do it? What's the purpose? Let me jump on a thing here. And is there a way, this work? Tell me. And so this kind of goes on. To more of the same. So this is kind of what we're going to kind of try to talk about today. And I think that the idea for me is that we look at genetics, and I think genetics is definitely worth looking at. And maybe the future will tell us this, where we'll be able to walk in the door and there'll be like this scanner that kind of reads your genes and says, hey, if you get that flu shot tomorrow, there's going to be a really great chance you're going to have an adverse reaction because your genetic profile says no to the preservatives that are in it, right? The reason I brought that up is because I saw a girl yesterday who's a nurse who got the flu shot. She's had multiple in a row. Last year, she had never had a problem. Last year, she got deathly sick after it. This year, now she has a frozen shoulder within 2 days of getting the flu shot. Bad reaction, right? Just happens to get an allergic reaction. People do. We all know it happens. But we don't quite know, is my genetic profile the one that is going to be it? Is my genetic profile the one that's going to get breast cancer? Is my genetic profile the one that's set up for heart disease if I don't stay strict to a certain diet? Right? So it's kind of cool. But we'll look at genetics and then we'll look at maybe some ideas of probability. So what are the things you could do to increase the probability that that stuff doesn't happen to you? Right? Versus the probability that it will happen to you, right? We all look at smoking now, and sitting's the same thing, and I'm sure Sandy kind of talked about that. Look, guys, smoking was laughed at. I mean, people were like, you are a nut job for saying smoking is creating any kinds of problems. I mean, nuts. And in fact, you can even go back and look, you Google this, you can find prescriptions for lung-related conditions, smoke. But you might just have to switch brand. Okay? Sitting is not going to be any different. I promise you that. It's just right now it's still kind of laughed at a little bit.
A lot.
What's that?
Nancy, it's laughed at a lot.
Yeah, it's laughed at a lot. But if you go up to, there's still is, and this is not the greatest place for it, but you go up to Silicon Valley, all those tech companies are all up. Everybody's up. You don't see this chronic sitting like you do now, so it will go. So here's one way, and I look at you guys, I should change that to the ambulance department maybe, but the fire department analogy to me is this: when you start to look at healthcare, and hopefully we can use this to say, when I run into an issue, which avenue do I take? Because it's pretty confusing here in the United States. Which specialist do I see? Who am I supposed to go? Because a lot of it is this, we all badmouth each other too. It's like, the orthopedist hates the chiropractor hates the physical therapist hates so-and-so, right? But you go to Australia, for instance, and I got a good friend from Australia, so I use the example. They don't do any of that. Because it's not such a, it's not such a capitalist department, We're not trying to make that extra buck off of health. It's just, hey, get people to where they're supposed to be. It's kind of a good answer. But here's how I looked at it. It's like, if this building was just to catch on fire right now, it's pretty simple, I think, for every single one of us to say, who do we call? Call no one. We'll take care of it. We'll take care of it, right?
That's gonna be a little.
Pretty simple, right? So the place burns down, right? Say we screwed up and the place burns down, and we go, hey, we gotta rebuild this building. Well, we look at back and we go, well, why did we call the fire department? Well, essentially we call the fire department because they have the right tools to be able to deal with a building that's on fire, right? Their tools are great. They got the axes, the hoses, they're ready to roll. But when it comes time to rebuild the building, the question is who you call? And I think that we wouldn't call somebody who has tools that are axes and hoses, right? We probably call the contractor, we call the carpenter, who has different tools to rebuild the building, if you will. Well, look at the fire department as the medical profession, guys. I think the medical profession has proven over and over the one thing they do really great in this country is they deal with emergencies. We do a pretty darn good job of that. And so when somebody's in a life-threatening situation, somebody gets in a terrible car accident, what have you, it's an easy call. Who has the tools to get in to do that surgery or save that life? I think our medical profession does. But when it comes to rebuilding the house, restoring your health, changing your type 2 diabetes because your blood sugar's out of control, and changing that to a regular blood sugar, reducing your blood pressure, your cholesterol through lifestyle change, the guys to go to are not the medical profession for that. I would argue that it's the exact wrong place to go, because giving you the tools they have are drugs and surgery. Well, drugs and surgery are not the answer to you being overweight, you going to Taco Bell, you eating the refined carbohydrates, you skipping meals, you not sleeping. That's not a drugs and surgery option. It's why it's not working. I think you got to go to the carpenters. And so you go and look for those wellness type educators, those folks that are in nutrition, those folks that are in acupuncture, massage, chiropractic, these places that are kind of paying attention to how do you make those lifestyle shifts to affect your health issue, not using drugs and surgery. So let me go to the next one real quick. I think one of the questions, and you hear this a lot on the in the news, is you hear people argue about Obamacare and this and that. And the question is it too broke to fix? And cortisone shots are a classic example. Cortisone shots are one of those things that we just try to get people by for a little bit. It's like, man, that shoulder's a disaster. We got a lot of inflammation in there. Let's just throw in a cortisone shot and hope it works. You know, I mean, it is true. It is how they say it. I mean, there's no guarantee it's going to work. And it's a lot of times like, hey, give it 3 days and let's see. And hopefully then maybe we can even get 3 months out of this or 6 months. But it's not really fixing the busted up animal, right? It's just trying to, again, get us by. And maybe it's not the right tool for the long term. Okay, it's using emergency kind of care in a non-emergency type situation. So I think that one of the things that's become tough for Americans is that we do allow so much marketing. And in some ways it's great if you're the capitalist because you can make a product, market it right, and it goes off pretty well. The problem is that there's not really any restrictions on how you label and how you kind of mix ingredients, and you can basically just flat out lie on the back of ingredients list now. But I mean, think about it, it's so crazy. I'd say 7 to 8 out of 10 people still coming through my office at least, still don't get this one. Is it no fat? High fat? Low fat? What do we do with fat?
Home birth.
I mean, it's just crazy. Is it that fat that's causing me heart disease? But then they talk about these good fats that I'm supposed to be taking, all this fish oil and flaxseed oil and all that stuff. People just, they can't figure it out, and they go, should I be getting a 99% fat-free ground turkey? Should I be getting a non-fat milk? I mean, this fat thing is still a big thing. They messed with us when they marketed hardcore on fat, and we're still lost today. The latest one, with this paleo diet and all this kind of stuff, you guys probably heard about this, is this whole carb thing, right? No sugar, should be no grains, right? There's a book called The No Grain Diet came out, Paleo Solution, Wheat Belly, Grain Brain. These are all very popular books that are all been out there. They all talk about the same thing, but it's all this whole grain thing. But then you go and you read, the old traditional stuff, right? We play sports and so forth. We're supposed to carbo load, right? The night before a football game, the next day, it's like, you guys got a carbo load, but you blast out all that pasta, and now it's like the biggest nightmare. And so you can see why people might be confused on some of this stuff. Aerobic, anaerobic, I like this one too. It's like Ken Cooper, big researcher out of Dallas, was the first guy to really start coming in on this aerobic type training, if you will. Triathlons started getting going. He's talking marathoners. He's talking about the big endurance riders. And so aerobic. All the gyms started putting in the treadmills, and they all start putting all this stuff. And this is how we're supposed to get fat loss, right? Well, now we get the CrossFitter guys coming out, right? CrossFit kind of sweeping the nation. This is kind of a big deal. And what are they saying? Hey, we got to get in some of that interval training. We got to push that anaerobic threshold a little bit. We got to get that kind of muscle to fat ratio to be a little bit better. And so that's how we're going to kind of lose weight. That's how we're going to get those kind of goals that we want. So again, confusing as hell, right? It just continues to go on and on. Milk is a classic one. Milk is bad. Milk is good, right? We all got the phrase, right? As a commercial, milk, it does a body good, right? Then you get these other guys over here that report the statistics that say the #1 allergen in this country is milk. Milk does body good, but there's more people allergic to it than anything else. And you start, it's like, where do I go with any of this stuff, right? Paleo diets, like I said, South Beach, Atkins was a beauty for a long time. Should I be carnivore, herbivore, omnivore, vegan? One of the great books out there, Omnivore's Dilemma, I thought, fantastic book. Coffee bad, coffee good, alcohol. What do? I take synthetic hormones, or is it those bioidenticals? Now, I should be taking. Soy swept the world by storm. Now what's everybody say about soy? Bad. Estrogen disruptor, right? No good. What are all our fish fed? You know what's interesting about fish? What are all our fish fed? Our farm-raised fish are all fed soy. Right? 98%
And
all
dog
the fish in this
food.
country. What's that?
And dog food
And dog food, yeah.
that they take off the
Dog food with arsenic in it.
shelves.
Interesting.
Naturally, though.
So,
Right.
C-section, home births,
Fukushima water.
Yeah, so it might be better.
pasteurized raw, I like all this. But think about some of these just for a second. Can you finish these?
It's
I think you can. I mean, we get marketed to, right, all the time.